Hi, everyone. So we are live for the weekly Power Hour. We are really focused on the listings challenge that we have going on with our agents. And today we are basically in that holiday week still, but we're planning out everything that we need to get ready and launched in the beginning of the year. This is literally the perfect time to be doing it. You're a step ahead of other agents. Most agents will not even start thinking about their 2026 until 2026, but you will be ideally months ahead of them because you have planned out not only your quarter of content that you're going to be creating, but we are now diving into the assets, the lead magnets, essentially the value you're going to be offering to potential sellers in your targeted areas. And we're going to dive into that today. I will go through some of the previous steps as well, just because I know some of you have been away for the holidays. And ideally, I could just kind of run through it quickly of what should have been completed. And then we'll jump right into the digital assets, which is our topic for today. Keep your questions coming in the chat. And we will get to them as we go. Let me just, if you are in the chat, just feel free to comment. We can make sure we're getting everything correctly.
Selena, I just wanted to add something. Running the team I do and focusing everybody in on the one most important thing, which is to secure a pipeline of business. There's nothing more important that anybody and everybody in the team or you as a solo agent should be doing other than this. So I'm very excited and I'm actually grateful that you especially decided to take this on and encourage everybody to come along with you to do this because it's not an easy time of year to be as motivated to do all of it, but it is the best possible thing we could all be doing for our businesses. I just wanted to say thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it is definitely a hard time to be doing things, but it honestly will kick you off on the right foot coming into the new year with a hot pipeline. Let me just make sure that we have everything going correctly. I'm just going to hop on into our community and make sure that we are in there. If I've got any questions. I know last week was hard to get in. And I ended up just proceeding anyway because I didn't want to stall time, but I do want to make sure this time that I did do this correctly.
I can keep talking if you want.
Yes, you keep talking. I'm just going to make
So
sure
I'm
everyone's in.
excited because I know we did YouTube last week. I was away. I came home and I bought the Osmo and I'm watching videos and learning how to use it, which I'm really excited about. And that is this. This was the one that Selena recommended is called the Osmo Creator. So it's pretty cool. It comes like this. It also comes with 2 different battery options. And this turns into like a selfie stand, which is great. And it also comes with a mic, the DJI mic, which is excellent. So you have the DJI mic. So you don't necessarily have to get the separate mic package, which I also happen to have, but you don't necessarily have to get that. The microphone, when you're doing your videos, you guys, the microphone, the sound is so important. So if you're going to invest in anything and you don't necessarily want to invest in an extra tool, invest in a good microphone for your own iPhone. That is always going to make the difference. It's going to clear out a lot of the noise from everything else. And the sound is so important. And the other piece of equipment that Selena had recommended is this little guy here. And basically this is a screen that when you put it on the back of your phone, it's mirroring your phone. So because even with the new iPhones, when you're doing a selfie or a video or vlogging, you're typically using the front camera, not the back camera. And the front camera, even though it's better in the new iPhones, the back camera is still better than the front camera. So when you buy this, and if this is, again, no pressure on buying anything, but I'm just telling you, this was like $45 on Amazon and the link is in the site. But essentially it literally turns the back of your camera into a mirror of the front of your camera so you can see what you're doing. It lets you use teleprompter also. So I do a lot of my stuff like that. I use a teleprompter app and I put it on my screen and I basically record. And then after I'm done, I'll just cut out what didn't work. And I learned this trick because I've done a lot of news films. And what they taught me is to just keep going and to cue yourself so you know what to cut out. It's not heavy editing at all. It's just, you're literally just cutting and then starting again. So you cue yourself by clapping twice. So if you screw up, you just stop, you take a breath and you go, and then you keep going. So that's how I do most of my stuff. It made a lot more sense for me than to just keep stopping and starting.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good tip. It's something that I've been using too. And it's very easy for whoever is editing your video to find those spots where you're clapping and be able to just kind of edit that out. All right, so this is all available, all of the camera equipment that she is mentioning. I will just share my screen. So all the camera equipment that she's mentioning is right here. You can see on the YouTube strategy page is where we actually have it. We've got the mobile setup, the desktop setup, and then just like vlogging, which is where the creator combo comes in. I do like the creator combo because it has everything in it, as Stacy mentioned. So it's just all in one. That's the one you probably want to use most of the time. In terms of everything else, the mobile setup is literally if you just plan to use your mobile phone and your camera if you don't want to buy anything else and you just want to use your phone, it has an amazing camera on it. You can use it. I would just recommend doing the mic and the selfie monitor because it will the quality will be even better. But if you want to step up your game a little bit, then the DJI is a great one to use. And the creator combo actually comes with a mic for it. It's great for on the go. The desktop setup is good for your monthly market updates when you are sharing your screen, but pretty much everything else you are either talking to the camera or you are out and about at a home. And that's where I would recommend using the DJI. All right, so let's just go back to the roadmap for a moment and kind of just recalibrate where we actually are in the process. So we've already done all of the week one, which is essentially the research and the strategy, time blocking your calendar to do your videos. Videos is one of the non-negotiable tactics that we are saying to use for 2026. And that pretty much gets you going. The next step was to review the core strategy, which is a value first marketing strategy, and then the non-negotiable tactics within there, and start to plan out what other approaches you want to use to 10x your listings. It is a very aggressive goal. It is certainly very doable, but it's going to take something beyond just the core basics. And so that's why we are recommending to add on an additional strategy. In the menu here up on the top right, you can actually see the first 4 are the non-negotiable strategies and the rest are additional ones that we would say to pepper in. You don't and you should not do all of them. Focus is a really key part. But if you are deciding to go after paid or you're going to do mailers, there are different options for you to do within there and you can kind of pick them out. So I'll tell you the basic channels. Mailers are a big part here, and that's represented in the golden letter, geofarming, and circle prospecting. Expired is another avenue that you can do, which is all about calling. Calling is essentially the best way to activate expired listings. We also recommend texting. And if you are in certain states other than Texas, texting is fine to do. And then the other method or approach is related to in-person or potentially virtual events, and that is represented with these two. And then there is a last strategy or last 2 strategies. One is related to vendor referrals and maximizing that opportunity, which many agents are not doing, and it's a really big win. And then the final one is paid ads. So kind of depending on where you're going to go, you do not have to do all of these. And I would actually suggest you not do all of them. But if you're kind of picking between if you want to do mailers or not, and you kind of know the category to fit in there, if you want to do paid ads or not, you know what category to fit in, and if you want to do events or expired. So that's kind of the 4 big categories. Just really try to pick what is going to be best for your market, because, for example, in some markets, there's not very many expireds, or you may not want to do that in your particular market. Then, and maybe your style is more to do mailers, and you can do that. Paid ads will pretty much work in every single market, but it's going to be your tolerance level for media buying, right? Because you will be buying media from Facebook or Facebook Meta or Google. All right, so you do want to make sure that you pick out those additional approaches that you want to be using. All right, so that was essentially week 2. And then we went into creating your content plan, which was a part of a non-negotiable strategy related to YouTube. And it was a prompt that we had where it will build out your CSV file, which is just a fancy word for a spreadsheet that contains all the information for all 12 weeks of content that you would be producing. It's got all the important details that are often missed when you create a video. It's actually what gets your videos seen. It's the optimization part, right? It's what the title has, what the YouTube thumbnail offers, right? It's the things that get people to click. It's what gets them to actually watch your video for a long period of time. And these are what actually matters. It's your number of views you get is primarily based on how many clicks, how many people actually click on your video. And then it's your watch time, right? If you have a high watch time, meaning people are watching a longer portion of your video, right? That is actually going to signal to YouTube that this video is important and people like it. And so it will actually get seen by more people. So all these things really matter. And your content plan, that one prompt is going to give you everything that you need to generate the right type of content. When you did this plan and when you use that prompt, you do want to make sure that you pulled in the research that we did in week 1, where we actually used a prompt, the Seller Opportunity Scout, to look at where your most motivated sellers are in your market area, right? So that prompt is actually very important to make sure that you use that data to power your content, right? So the next 12 weeks, we want to be focused in the areas that are going to make the biggest impact on listings and motivating sellers specifically to consider selling. All right. So that kind of gets us into this MOFIR SMS campaigns and your marketing assets. Now, what we want to do is, because next week, the beginning of the year, we're going to be launching everything. We want to get everything going, right? So you have impact in the new year. There are a couple things you're going to need to actually make this happen. So we've done our research and you know your strategies and tactics you're going to be using, but you are going to need assets, right? That's the value you are actually offering to potential sellers to generate leads, right? So these are things like your lead magnet, which are going to offer in a message that is sent out. These types of things are really important to hone in on right now and create them so that by time you hit into next week, we can actually put them live. So let's kind of talk through what these actually are, and it will depend on the tactics that you have picked. But I'm going to focus in on the MOFIR SMS campaign because that is a non-negotiable, which basically means it is something that you absolutely must be doing in 2026. So I'm going to kind of drop right into it. This is the MOFIR method. If you've ever read anything that Gary Keller has done, he talks about a MOFIR, and it's make an offer for immediate response. Now, a lot of the MOFIRs that you may have heard about are typically super direct, which is something like, here's a cash offer for your home, right? I have a buyer looking in your neighborhood. That's considered a very direct MOFIR, right? It is basically just specifically asking, are you going to be selling or not? The other way to do this is through a more indirect MOFIR, okay? And they are both good, but for different reasons, right? A direct MOFIR is going to hit people who are already thinking about it. But the percentage of people who are already thinking about selling is going to be less than 6%, right? 6% of your database is probably actively transacting, right? Or considering a transaction. And that's what the stats tell us. So that would mean that the rest of the 94% aren't considering doing anything. So An indirect MOFIR is going to target everybody else. It's giving them something of value through an SMS message that will get them to respond. It's still a MOFIR because you are engaging and you're looking for a response and you're asking a very specific question. So the example that we give here is having your vendor directory, right? You work with vendors all the time and you know which ones are good. And so you've got your recommended list. This is super handy to homeowners, right? So offering them that is actually just a way to start a conversation, right? And that's what we want to be doing this with. This is perfect for SMS messaging. SMS gets a 98% open rate. That beats email any day. And if you are doing this strategically, which our method that we have that is built into Agentmoves is actually going after very specific people, it is going to lead to a very high response rate, much better than email will ever get. So that is going to help you start conversations. Because if you remember, another non-negotiable strategy was making connections with your database, right? By calling or sending DMs or like that. But SMSs is a great way to create connections in your database and give you people to call and talk to. So we do want to be doing this. And again, this is something that we have been using with all of our agents for years now. And it is a really, really probably the number one strategy that you can use to get more listing appointments. So what I am going to do is actually have Stacy jump in just to talk about one particular one that she has talked about a lot on stage when at Mega Camp at Family Reunion last year, and just her approach to doing this, what her MOFIR is. It is called a value up MOFIR. And the basic premise of this particular MOFIR is something like, whether you list with me or not, when I leave your home will be worth more. That is the basic premise. So I will leave it to you to talk about, Stacy, because this is something that actually has worked very, very well in your business. And it's
Sure.
honestly one of the best strategies to use to activate your database.
Sure. So the value up method is like the founding principle of how we essentially differentiate ourselves with our clients. And we use it as a MOFIR campaign by just what Selena said. We offer value. We offer something for free, essentially. And so what I'll tend to do is I'll send out the MOFIR messages I have sent out that have worked would read something like this. Hey, it's Stacy Esser from KW. Hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out because I've been helping homeowners like you make the most of their property's value, even if selling is not on the immediate horizon. And that is where this is so different than any other direct MOFIR, because basically what I'm saying is, even if you're not selling, I want to come in and offer you a free service, which is that I can guide you and support you on any upgrades that will enhance your home. Essentially, I'm saying, whether you're selling today or maximizing for tomorrow, I invite me in and I will offer my professional advice to you free of charge. Nobody ever hangs up on that message. The response that I typically get is, thank you so much. I don't need that right now. Or, wow, you do that? I didn't know you did that. That would be great. And then immediately my goal is to then hop on a phone call, even when somebody says they don't even need me. As soon as I get somebody responding to me, my response is to try to pick up the phone and schedule some time with them or just talk to them. So the value up method, again, is just to focus on, how do I offer something for free that's there's no real obligation on their part. It's such an easy yes. It's such an easy yes. And I'm also tapping into some of their biggest concerns, which is overspending on a potential renovation. And I typically will hit people who are deciding whether to stay or go. And a lot of you guys have the same issue. Like, people are like, should I stay in my house? If I'm going to stay in my house, then what should I be doing to my house? And I don't want to do stuff that is not going to necessarily get me an ROI. And so that value up MOFIR checks all of those boxes and gets such a great response from people. So it's very helpful for me.
So one question that's coming in. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. One question is coming in. What are you going to be doing? Do you like doing this as opposed to the vendor resource directory?
Sure. I actually like both of them. I always do a value up MOFIR. I've been running SMS MOFIRs with Agentmoves already for over a year. So I'm in the thick of this. I'm going to be doing I'm doing the vendor one right now. Because I did a value up one a few months ago. So I'm now in the vendor one. We have, again, it's a fabulous, it's a fabulous free service that you're giving somebody and people really enjoy it. And typically when they need a vendor, they need it for a specific reason. So the goal is for you guys to it's not just a yes, no, it's not a yes, no. You want to engage in a conversation. If they say, yes, I could really use somebody. Thank you. Your goal then is to say, oh, that's exciting. What are you working on? You want to keep the conversation going. And then you could always come back and say, you know what I do for a lot of my clients is I offer them this value up consult so that I help to make sure that they're not doing things that are going to be overdone or not give them the best ROI. So just because I'm not necessarily using the value up doesn't mean I don't go to the value up as a way to get me in the door.
Okay, great. And I'm going to throw out another one there. You've also used the I have a buyer direct one. It actually is what worked on me. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Sure. So I'm actually looking at my screen because I have all my MOFIRs on my right screen. So yeah, I mean, the very cool thing, if you're already an established agent and you're direct messaging somebody in your database that you have been in touch with, and I'm going to say this because all of us are typically concerned about being not authentic and being pushy and being too salesy. The benefit of making sure that we're doing these things on a regular basis is that when you come at them and say you have a buyer, they trust you. They know that you're not just baiting them, right? They know you're not just baiting them. So when you say you have a buyer, I've said, hey, it's Stacy. I know this might sound crazy and you probably will say no, right? That's how I pitch it because I want to give them the freedom to feel, disarm them, obviously. But I have a great buyer who would love your house. Would you be open to showing it? I'm not even reading it because I know that's what it says because that's literally how I speak, and making sure that the MOFIRs sound the way you speak is incredibly important. The responses I get are nothing but they feel positive from it. They feel like that's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of me. And here's where the conversations go. What do you think I could get? Even if they're not interested, they'll say, well, I'm not interested, but if I was, what do you think I would get? Or I'm not interested. And then I say, well, that's totally cool. I understand. May I ask why? What is it? Or not? And they're like, I don't have anywhere to go. And then I go into, okay, let's talk about that. All right. So again, it's the bait, it's the hook. And then it's your job to reel it in. And you just have to get a little creative with it.
So let's talk about the actual getting of the appointment. So when the SMS, whatever the MOFIR may be, you mentioned to go in and really get to the, like, why do you need this? Or, what's going on? Or here's the number your home would get, whatever that next step is. How do you get in the door from that point?
I make it very casual. I think it's important that you keep it very casual. So I just say, I say to them, it would be, I said, listen, I'm going to be in your neighborhood. I'm going to be around the corner from you. I'm actually doing the same thing for your neighbor. I tend to do that. I tend to drop, I'm actually doing the same thing for somebody who lives across the street or somebody who is 2 doors away from you. I'm like, why don't you just let me come in and get an assessment of what the house looks like. It's totally casual. And then I'll be able to give you like a real idea of what your equity looks like. And I can't imagine that's not going to be super valuable to you. It's pretty easy. That's really it. I mean, if you don't want to go that far, you can simply ask them like, well, tell me about your house. What updates have you made? You know when they bought it, what they paid for it, the lot size, you might say to them, did you know, I do often say to them, I can't believe what, 2 doors down got for their house. And they may or may not know. And that's another thing. You can pique somebody's interest just by telling them about a particular sale. If you know about an off-market sale, that's even better. But if you say, I can't believe what Selena got for her house, you're like 2 doors down and your house is even newer, like your house. And they get excited. And so that's how I do it. Does that help?
Okay, great. Let's go into what the automation looks like for the SMS MOFIR so that you're not necessarily surprised at what's happening. Once you pick the MOFIR that you're going to do, which again, you can pick from any of the ones on the list, your main goal is to start the conversation and get to the appointment. So let's just talk about how that automation works and what is actually happening on it. So I'm going to share my screen so I can kind of get you into it, literally show you how the MOFIR message works.
The automation is so helpful. The appointment scheduling is so helpful. By the way, I love it.
The intent.
What? Well, while you're doing that, I just think the most important thing is like, just if you get somebody who responds to you negatively, like, who cares, you guys? Like, who cares? Like, okay, great. Sorry to bother you. Like, it's very, very rare that it happens, but don't worry if it does. Like, who cares? It is what it is. Maybe you caught them on a bad day. So who cares? Just keep moving on. Just be like, oh, okay. Or if they text the wrong person and you just apologize and then you make best friends with them and you get them to love you and they're in your database now.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. So am I sharing?
Yes, you're sharing.
Okay. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. Close that. Okay. So there's essentially two types that are running. If you are doing this for the first time, then you are likely running on what we call the MOFIR offer with no AI bot. The MOFIR offer that has an active bot running, you would know about it if it is running, but it means that we've literally built a bot that will also get the responses and respond back and try to book into an appointment if it is a positive response. So most of you may be running the one without the AI bot. And the reason that we usually start with this one is because, first of all, we're not sending out a ton all at once. That's actually the key. We want to get through your entire SOI and most of your past client list over the course of 90 days. In this case, most of you started running this in December, so it would end around the end of February, and we're going to get through everybody. So we are basically dripping it out, just so that not everybody is going to get the message. You're never going to go on all those appointments all at once anyway. So we really are trying to make it so that you are able to respond back pretty quickly, and there's only 20 or so a day that would be going out. So, and if you've got a larger database, it may be more than that. I know with Stacy, it's a fairly large amount that's going out every single day, but otherwise it's around 20 to 30 that are going out. All right, so let's just look at what this is. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to add everyone who is in your SOI and past clients into this automation. And it is going to check to make sure they are the right type of person first, because we don't necessarily want to blast this out to everybody in your database. Okay. The types of messages these are, you want to be strategic and intentional about how you send these out. So what we want to do is first just check, are they already an open opportunity, right? Meaning, are you already talking to this person because they, you saw them in a grocery store or they responded to, something you had on social, right? If that is the case, and you have an opportunity that is open for that, it is not going to send them the MOFIR message because you're already in talks. There's no need to get them into your pipeline. They are already in your pipeline. So that will get ignored. If though it is not there, it will kind of keep going, but it is going to still check other factors to see if they are what we call MOFIR eligible. So MOFIR eligible is a lot of different things, but I'll go into the core elements. So first of all, if they are another agent, they are not MOFIR eligible, right? This offer is not relevant to them, right? So they would not be in this. If they already received a MOFIR message in less than 90 days, so last quarter, so if you're like Stacy and you run these all year round, right? We don't want to be sending out multiple messages to somebody. We want to make sure that they have not received anything MOFIR-like from us over the last 90 days. So I'll give you an example of how this kind of plays in, especially in someone like Stacy's database, right? So if, let's say, she sent out a MOFIR to somebody over 90 days ago, but they came to one of her open houses, she's got an open house MOFIR going as well. So that when the moment when someone actually leaves an open house, they get a MOFIR. So they're going to get that MOFIR, but we don't want to send them another MOFIR if they've already received that one in between that period of time. So that's kind of how that plays out, just to make sure that we're not sending these messages out too often. And honestly, sending it out too much, there is something called overwhelming your database. You don't want to do that. You want to use SMS really strategically. That is what's going to get you the best response over time. Okay. And then the other thing is that we want to make sure that it's going to be to your past clients that have not transacted in less than, 180 days at the very least. But usually, and you can see in this particular case, we are looking at the last 18 months. So if they transacted with you within the 18 months, they are not likely to do something again. So we won't send the message out to them. Now, in some cases, for some agents and for some MOFIRs, we may still be asking for a review from those people, right? And that would be our MOFIR message. So it's okay if they transacted in the last 18 months. But for most of you and for most of the MOFIRs, we won't be sending them out to people who have transacted in the last 18 months. So once that criteria is set and we know who is MOFIR eligible, then we essentially start sending out the MOFIR. And we do this on very specific days of the week: Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You can see we have a standard set in which we drip, which is about 100 a week, and about 33 to 34 a day. This is super dependent on how many people are in your database. So I can tell you that a lot of agents, this will vary, but this is sort of the standard, and what I would say is the minimum for most agents is to be sending out about 33 a day. You'll expect to get 5, 6 responses back in any given day. And a lot of times people don't respond right away. So you may end up with still getting responses on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday, even when things aren't being sent out, it's because they're replying to it a little bit later. So that message will start, right? And it goes out at that very specific time. We do this usually mid-morning. So between 10:30 and 12:30 is when most messages are sent out, and usually where you get the highest response rate. That is why we do them at that time. And we have an approach for how we actually send out the SMS message, and we call it a two-step MOFIR. It's a two-step MOFIR because it feels more natural when the message is broken up into two text messages. We've done so much testing on this that our two-step MOFIRs work really, really well. So we'll send out a part of the message in the first text, and then we'll wait about 25 seconds and we'll send out the next message. And the next message usually has the exact question, like, do you want this? Do you want me to send it to you? Right? It's just like kind of a follow-up from your previous one. There's usually only one question. They're fairly short messages because people don't read books in their text message, right? So it's going to be around 300 characters or less in that message, and that will get sent out. We are also, for a lot of you, we will differentiate between who is SOI and who is past client. And past client, very specifically, we may be sending them a review nurture instead of the MOFIR SMS campaign. So it just kind of depends on what you have picked, but there is that option to send out a different message to your past clients as you may your SOI. Once that's sent out, we update all the records for you so we know exactly when the MOFIR was sent out to them, date of the last MOFIR that was sent out. We actually wait for their reply. If they reply positively, we'll add it to your pipeline. All of that automation is already happening within this. I know this looks super overwhelming and it's a crazy AI automation, but that is how it works. It's all set up for you. You honestly have just one thing to do. You have to basically pick the offer. Every single quarter, you pick the offer that you want to use, and we will program and set it up for you. It is all ready to go as long as you have that offer. So at that point, we're waiting for a reply, but we actually are going to wait for 7 days to get the reply. So we usually, when you think about follow-up, you always want to respond right away, right? So you're going to reply right away. But from a MOFIR message, they're not expecting to get this SMS message, and we don't want to hound them. So what we want to do instead is, if they don't reply over 7 days to an SMS message, we want to just follow up with an email. We don't want to be super aggressive, right? That's not how you want to be touching your database. But if they reply, you should reply to them right away. But if they don't reply, then send them an email as a follow-up, just saying, hey, I sent you a text message. That's what the email says. Sent you a text message last week, just making sure I still have the right information for you. Did you receive it? And then in case you missed it, we're going to say it again. So it's pretty simple, and it just creates an additional way for them to reply to you from that, right? So that is basically the entire workflow. If you are not using the bot version, if you're using the bot version, the bot will actually respond. So it will interpret what it is that the person said. So let's say you offered your vendor resource. It is going to interpret, did they want it? Did they not want it? Okay, if they wanted it, let me send it to them. And let me also ask them, just like Stacy said, what are you looking to do this year? What do you need it for? Right? Just asking them the questions so that we can try to build into, happy to check to see, look at your home value now. Like if you're going to do some updates on your home, let's talk about what that actually means in terms of how much equity you're going to build into your home, right? So those kinds of things will happen naturally through the AI bot, but I do recommend that you start without the AI bot first, because you'll want to be connecting with your database and really understanding how people communicate, because that is used to train your bot to begin with. Right? So that kind of goes through the details of that. That is your biggest thing to do this week, is to come up with what you want to do and say. It's actually already a part of that page on your MOFIR, so you can select which ones you want. And like Stacy said, you want to make it sound like you. We are never going to sound exactly like you in these messages. A lot of them are meant to be conversational and have a professional yet conversational tone, and they're friendly, but you may have a different way in which you communicate, and you absolutely want to just nitpick it. Definitely nitpick it. It's what's going to be sent out from your database. The best way that I've always told people to do it, because they're always like, oh, let me use ChatGPT and see how to do it, which is fine, but it's never going to be exactly you. So the way that I tell people to do it is to send me a text message. Send me a text message of what you would say if you wanted to ask me something. And usually that message is almost exactly the message that you should be sending out there. So that's what I would recommend you do to get it super or hyper personalized, which is what we want. So that is your first step, is that MOFIR message. That's the biggest asset that you're going to need, which is your offer. Then what we think about in terms of other assets is, what are you going to need to make this MOFIR really stand out? So now let's think about in Stacy's example, right? In Stacy's example, there was a couple that she mentioned. She mentioned the vendor directory. So that is an asset that you're going to need. So if you do not have that from Agentmoves, you will need one, because if you're sending it out, you want to make sure that you have your resource directory in a really professional way laid out. We have a funnel for that, and that funnel is what you would use to send out. The other example that Stacy mentioned was the value up MOFIR, right? If you are going in with an offer to say, let me give you some recommendations on how you can value up your home, right? If you're going in with that offer, right, there are some assets that you would want to walk in to the appointment with that is going to make that appointment 1,000 times better. So I'm actually going to show you some of Stacy's assets, just because I think it will be helpful. So I'll first just start of what, if you're doing the value up MOFIR, what you would actually want to mail out to the homeowner prior to that appointment. So the whole premise of the value up MOFIR is really being able to walk in the door and have the deal sealed in that, literally that first listing appointment. But you're going in with something of a tremendous amount of value, and you're starting from value. So one of the things that you can do before you walk into that appointment is to actually send them literally a booklet of exactly what they can do to maximize their home. So that's actually a great example. She has it right there, which you can send this out prior to your appointment, right? And everybody, if you're an Agentmoves client, you have these, right? We have these books for you already. You can be sending this out directly before you walk in the door. So they already have essentially the answers to their questions. We actually have some templates already built within our mailbox, which if you are using that from Agentmoves, these booklets are something that you can get access to. I'll actually share it on my screen too.
The other thing that I love about the assets is it's really the framework. It's the framework for all of your conversations. It's the go-to when you get even if you get a little confused sometimes and you're like, where am I in the conversation? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So the value up is it's a framework for success, and it's the framework that is going to guide everything that you're doing with your client.
Yep. So here's an example of just the set of assets that you may want to consider from a mail perspective. You're going to have assets that are like your offer. You're going to have assets that are mail assets, and you're going to have offer assets that are like funnels, right? And so this is a great example of a mail asset that you could be using as soon as someone books an appointment. Let's say they book their value up appointment and you send them a note card that says, here's the estimated value, right? Here is what is going on. Here's the estimated values in the market. Just want you to have this context before we meet up. And then you can send your booklet. This one is very specifically on Enhance Today, Maximize Tomorrow, which is basically like the things you can do to your home now to help build equity so that when you're ready to sell, right, you will maximize that sales price. So that's a booklet that you could send, and then you can actually set it up on a nurture from there, so that even if you walk away from that appointment and they aren't thinking of selling right now, right, they can still get continuous updates from you, right, including even additional MOFIR messages, right, from you over the next few years until they are ready. That is how you're going to maximize every single visit to a home that you have, right? Because not every listing appointment is, I mean, that's pretty much the top two reasons someone doesn't go with you is that one, they decide not to sell, or two, they go with another agent. So in that scenario that they just decided not to sell right now, it doesn't mean that they won't sell in 6 months or list their home in 3 months. And you all know that you've been a part of that scenario where you went in for a listing appointment and they told you that they weren't ready to sell yet, but then their house is on the market 3 months later, right? That happens. And the only way you can avoid something like that is staying top of mind and continuously nurturing them. So this type of mail automation allows you to keep them nurtured until they are actually ready to do something. So that's what we would recommend from the perspective of mail. But I also want to show you some assets that you would want digitally. So let me show you some funnel assets that all of you already have access to. You still have access to these, and they're in your Agentmoves account. I will jump in and show you. And I will actually just kind of show you even where I am getting it from so that you know. All right, so we're going to go on over to sites, and within sites we have a bunch of your actual lead funnels. So we have a whole bunch of them, but the one that I am specifically talking about is your seller's playbook, right? This is whatever we have used to, that's like the book that she showed you. We have a digital version of that you can be using as a lead magnet, and probably something that you want to be using when it comes to generating seller listings. So this is a great example. It basically has them an opt-in page. From the opt-in page, it has an additional offer from that, and it actually has the digital version of the book. So all of you have this that you can actually use, and you do want to decide on which lead magnet you're going to be using. Everybody needs one. You probably already have this built in, but if you don't, then you want to make sure that you pick that, because that is something that is going to be your go-to all quarter long, right? When you need somebody to, either you need to generate leads or you need some support in converting them, your lead magnet is going to be the best way to do that. This particular lead magnet is a playbook specifically on how you sell homes for top dollar in the least amount of time. Every single goal of a seller is to maximize dollar, right? For time on market. They don't want to be on the market for a super long period of time, right? Especially over the average. So if you have a book that explains exactly how you do it, not only do you differentiate yourself in the market, but you give them a valuable asset that they can use on their own. Now, they're going to call you to use this method, but you're going to be able to share it completely, give away the entire secret sauce for how you do things, because that is what is going to ultimately build trust. So that is what is within this particular lead magnet. So what we want to do in this week is just define all the different assets that you're going to be using for the next quarter, right? After this quarter, you will assess this and refresh this again and think through what are the lead magnets that I want to be using. But right now, you want to figure out what you're going to use to generate the most amount of listings. So that's what I would encourage you to do in these 3 buckets, right? First, create your offer. Think about how you are going to follow up and build more trust by using mail. Mail is a great way. It's a physical asset that people hold on to, and then your digital asset. So those kind of wrap up exactly how you would want to be thinking about this week and really become your focus area so that we can hit the ground running next week. Anything else you want to add to that, Stacy? But that was all I had today.
It's great. I think it's good. It sets us up. It's all good.
Okay, good. All right. And then a question about next week. Okay, I'm just reading this. All right, next week. So next week, you will see on the actual, let me actually share my screen again. The question is, what is on the roadmap next week? So we're going to just quickly share my screen. So let's go back to the roadmap. So we've got the marketing assets, which was for this week. We kind of get into targeted prospecting in this week. So you should be doing all of your daily habit of starting those conversations. You want to be doing that. That should be continuing on. Your MOFIR will have been started then in this week because it is now technically done with holidays, right? So after the new year, next week is the perfect time to start launching this. This is when they're thinking about it anyway. But if a part of your strategy and approach was mailers or events, next week you need to start promoting those things, right? So if it's mailers, you need to be sending out your first mailer, right? Maybe you chose to do the golden letter. If that's the case, that needs to go out next week, right? That's the only way you're going to start generating those conversations and those leads happening enough to build your pipeline in January. Then if you're doing an event, you need to make sure already that you have the event date, what the event is going to be out, if you've got any sponsors that are doing that event, because next week you are actually going to start promoting it. And that's going to be through email, through social, through calls that you make, but you want to be promoting that event that you are doing. So you really need to have all of this outlined prior so that next week you can hit the ground running and start doing that. So next week, what we plan to do is just go through some specific mailer campaigns, go through some specific strategies for workshops and seminars. And I've got a couple that some agents are doing that I will specifically walk through. And then if you are planning to do a workshop, we will also go through some thoughts on the content for that workshop, as well as just how to send it out in an email to get your database informed about what's going on, creating your post for that, all of that. We will get into the next call. All right. That's all I had today. Thank you guys. All right. Bye.